I am somebody's birthday present today. And I don't get nervous, but I get a little jazzed up when I have a new referral, a new body to work on, someone who doesn't know how I operate, doesn't know me or my energy. So I do hope that the referring parties that bought this chunk of time from me, I hope they gave this woman fair warning. I will have a thorough intake and we'll go through everything, but I know I do a lot of like the biotuning stuff and I do structural integration type of stuff and I do all kinds of stuff. So when I am booked for a big chunk with a new person, I have to get my mindset in the right arena. Get out of the mediation mindset, get out of the writing mindset and get into anatomy, body, spirituality, focus on that. So I have cleaned out all my spaces and I'm getting things ready and now I have a little bit of time to kill, so I figured I would go ahead and make a video pertaining to what's making the headlines lately pertaining to medical topics, shall I say. Now, the one big thing that's coming up is all of the recent findings of the coronavirus vaccines and all the side effects. And on God's green earth, I do not understand how this is new and surprising to anyone. Anybody with a critical mindset, critical thinking, I should say, and anyone with any type of common sense would know something was awry as soon as they dropped the name coronavirus, because that term has been on the back of a Lysol bottle since the 1970s. Before the shutdown even happened, as soon as I heard mumblings of coronavirus, I was already researching and figuring out, and I knew right away that this thing was created. It wasn't a morphing, it didn't occur naturally. And if you do any type of scientific research and you look into very odd things, then you would know about all of the biofield weapons and all the biological weapons and all the genetic engineering and all that stuff. And you would know where some of these labs are globally that the United States invests in and who the investors are. So none of this should be surprising to anybody who truly was questioning the narrative. Now, there are a lot of people that didn't question the narrative and just trusted the government and trusted the medical system. And sadly, a lot of those people work in the medical system and they did not feel the need to go ahead and do a little researching. They just gobbled up that governmental narrative, and that is very off-putting to me because people put their lives in the hands of these people that literally stopped having any type of curiosity in their field as soon as they got the degree. They'll do their little continuing education when they have to, but they ride on the fact that they went to medical school and that they train other doctors, and well, good for you. You're training people based on false information, false narratives, and don't get me going on this, but a lot of people have died from the after effects of the COVID shot. My father was one of them. I tried to tell him what was going on, and he had coronavirus before it was even in the country, supposedly. He had this mystery illness that was coronavirus, and it was scary. That first round was really, really scary. But I am going to take a stab in the dark and say that when coronavirus made its popularity, it was already morphing into a non-issue. I think anybody who got sick before it was in the country probably had it the worst. So I tried to inform him, please do not get the injections because these are not vaccinations. They are experiments. And how do we know when something is an experiment? Look at the entire situation. You have to have something to test things against. So when it comes to vaccines, they used the scientific method. You had some injections that were just saline solution because you have to see, for an experiment, you have to be able to measure it against a baseline. So some people had a batch that was just saline. Some people had a batch that had cancer-causing agents, and another batch had elements that targeted cardiac tissue. So depending on whichever one you got, this is how they were going to track what the outcomes would be. So this could perfectly explain, again, this is for, what do they say on YouTube? Informational purposes only. I am not a doctor. This is not informational, for entertainment purposes only. This is just crawling in my head. To me, you'll look at things and you're like, okay, you had how many different kinds of shots? You had 3 different kinds of shots, right? And all of them were having different side effects, right? And then they were talking about this contact tracing, right? So they had to check up to see how you were doing and follow up and come get your booster. And they had to follow this, which perfectly illustrates what the scientific method is, okay? So I don't know how anybody who went to medical school didn't put 2 and 2 together. I do know that some people, some nurses, and a few doctors that are not native to America were being honest about things. My father's doctor was one of my father's doctors was one of them. When I went in and I asked why all of a sudden my father was diabetic, I already did some research from other countries, but I took the Indian doctor aside and I said, listen, I know that when it comes down to coronavirus and even some of the shots, as far as I know, he hasn't gotten any of the shots yet, but there has been talk of people becoming insulin dependent once they have gotten better from corona. And his eyes lit up. He's like, you do the research. And I said, yes, I do the research. He goes, yes, we're trying to make the correlation to figure out, again, they're trying to figure out what version of the virus, what version of the shots, they're trying to put it together. But some doctors were aware. I do know for a fact some nurses were aware of what was going on, because as soon as they were mandated to get the injection or they would lose their job, I was getting messages in my inbox because I am a minister and I can write religious exemptions. Well, I'm not going to lie for anybody. So I asked them 3 questions. And I said, why don't you want to get it? What is in the mRNA vaccines that you are opposed to? And did you push these shots on other people while you knew this? And if they knew what was in it and they were opposed to getting it, but they pushed it on other people, I refused to write a religious exemption. But for those that were very candid with me and just confirmed all of the research I already did and told me what was in the vaccines, which, yeah, is not good, I did help those. And they did keep their jobs. But I don't understand why anybody would want to keep a job in an industry that knowingly lies to the public and knowingly causes harm to the public when in their oath they are to do no harm. So everything goes back to the mighty, mighty dollar bills. Not a big fan. Now, I'm going to say this on the Christian tip. Actually, this is going to be a very patchwork kind of video. On the Christian tip, I have said this in a multitude of places to a multitude of people. I think I have made a video on it before. But my prediction for 2026 was that everything in the kitchen sink is going to be thrown at us. And that's happening. And everything hidden will be revealed. And that is happening. But when it comes down to the spiritual aspect, and while everything's being thrown at us, there's going to be a very clear divide. That is happening as well. But the divide isn't just what we think it is. I happen to think that the people that live in the material world and still buy into the medical system, still buy into the religiosity of different denominations, and don't read the Bible for themselves, and don't take care of their fitness, don't care what's in their food. They're just going out and pleasing the flesh, whatever, buying the toys. The people that live in that world, they're going to go through a world of hurt economically, health-wise. They're going to have a spiritual crisis, and that is the time for them to wake up spiritually and start utilizing that critical thinking, decalcify that pineal gland, like start getting back to basics. Treat people well. Treat people how you want to be treated. Stop chasing the bag over upholding your integrity and good character. So that's how it's going to work out for people that live worldly. For people who are Christian, people who are spiritual, and are dipping their toe in Christianity, it's going to be a whole nother ball of wax. And I'm encountering this right now. I firmly believe that this is the time where Christians have to take a back seat. And hear me out. Hear me out. Okay? A lot of us have been trying to spread the good news, to preach the gospel, to be a good example of Christ's character, to glorify God in everything that we do. And when we do that, we want to be helpful to others. We tried to help people through coronavirus. We tried, those of us who knew what was going on, we tried to help people through it. They didn't listen. They laughed. They called us crazy. And now the repercussions are coming back. And guess what? Now they're angry at themselves for not listening, but they're not taking their anger out on themselves. They're still taking it out on the messengers who told them the truth. So this is an illustration of you will never win. You can be extremely helpful and you will be demonized for it. You can be extremely helpful and you'll be demonized for it later, even after your warnings were ignored and your instructions were truth to be helpful. You're not going to win. So for Christians coming up, I firmly believe this is what's going to happen. You are not to help anybody anymore. You wait for God's direction to tell you when to step in. No more playing Captain Save-A-Ho. And I say this because some people have to be brought to their knees in order to go to God. Some people have to lose everything for them to understand what's truly important. Some people have to get sick before they realize how important taking care of their health is. I'd like to say that I'm different, but I'm not. I'd like to say that a little tickle in the ear and I would listen to what everybody says, but God had to hit me over the head with a brick in a lot of situations for me to get the point, do an about face and change course. And that comes with my health, that comes in all my relationships, this comes to putting up with poor treatment from people. And Christians tend to think that we're being more godly if we just keep taking abuse. And if we're just always there for somebody. Good old so-and-so, good old so-and-so. They'll always be there. They're a Christian. But what's really going on is they see us as suckers. Now, there will be a time when God will give us the opportunity to help people again. But it's going to be more like in the Joseph story in the Bible. Joseph ended up helping out the very brothers that sold him into slavery and pretty much put him through hell on earth. But he ended up helping him out because Joseph's character, he was upright. He was second in command of the kingdom. So, he ended up helping out his brothers, but he tested them first. He wasn't just going to walk into the same abusive nature. These people had to be humbled. Once he knew that they were humbled, then he went again and helped them. And I think this is the position that we are all going to be in. I think we're in a Joseph season. A lot of us were in Job seasons for a while. Right now, I think we're in a Joseph season, and we will morph into a David season pretty soon. But we're not there yet. The hard part for us is going to be the sitting back and not doing anything and watching the destruction. Because our Christian nature is to be fruitful and to show people what we're about and to display Jesus Christ, and Jesus is kind, and Jesus healed, and that is definitely well and good, but part of kindness, I made a video on that, part of kindness is telling the truth, and a lot of us have told the truth and tried to shove truth down people's throats or repeated it or took the emotional garbage that people were doling out and were still trying to be kind and tell the truth, and we were slapped in the face for it. And yes, though we get knocked down 7 times, we get up 8 times. There is a difference between that and abuse and throwing your pearls to swine. You don't want to keep throwing your pearls to swine. Jesus walked away from people when they didn't accept the truth. And I think this is what we are going to be called to do, at least some of the warriors. This is what we're going to be called to do. You're going to be called names. You're going to be laughed at, everything else. Been there, done that. You've been persecuted. It's going to be nothing new to you. There is going to come a time very soon where people are going to be begging for your help. They're going to want to know everything that you studied, your personal spiritual walk. How do I read the Bible right? And you know what? You've been trying to tell these people for years. This time, they got to put up or shut up. You just say, read it. Follow it. You don't need to baby glove anything, and you don't need to hold people by the hand. So that's where I think 2026 is. I still firmly believe it's all going to come to a big, giant head at the end of July, beginning of August. That week. I think that's when it's going to culminate, at least on the spiritual side, where a lot of people are going through a lot of awakenings. I know that sounds frou-frou, but if you know, you know. A lot of people are finally thinking, like, this world that we're living in and how people operate in the world, what's the point? Exactly. This is what a lot of Christians have been trying to say. There is no point to all of this wealth and these clothes and this makeup and this. It doesn't serve anything unless it's just a little fun addition to actually serving people and helping others. So that's what's going to be interesting. I know I went on a tangent there, but I wanted to get it in. So yeah, the corona thing, yeah, people are reporting that all of a sudden they're diabetic, all of a sudden their blood pressure is crazy, all of a sudden they're having heart murmurs, they're exhausted, they're having to get heart ablations, they're having to get valve surgery. You have people that are having the blood clots in their systems, they're having all that. And this is what I always come back with when people want to challenge me on this. I'm not a doctor, but I'm no fool either. mRNA. What is it? Most people don't know. I tell them to look it up because I'm not going to spoon feed it to you anymore. I tried. You didn't listen. I repeated myself too many times already. So you want to know? Go look it up. mRNA is derived from what? Okay. Now, for the injections, where did that mRNA come from? Is it synthetic? Maybe in one of them. What about the rest of them? Start diving into where did the RNA, where was it derived from? You're putting something in your body that is foreign. Okay? What happens when somebody gets a liver transplant, a lung transplant, a heart transplant from another human? They have to get on anti-rejection drugs because it is not their body part. So now you're taking mRNA that is derived from something that ain't you, and you're putting it in your body, and it is self-replicating and self-assembling, and there are no anti-rejection drugs. So what do you think is going to happen? Your body is going to want to push it out. Now you look into other ingredients that'll explain the blood clots. I mean, there are so many simple answers to this, but nobody wants to listen. They want to trust all of the word salad that the medical community and the government has put out. Now, obviously, something is going on lately because why now? Why are we allowed to talk about this now? I'm seeing doctors coming on podcasts and finally talking about this. These are the same doctors that were muzzled during 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, they were muzzled. They lost their licenses. They had to, they spent tons of money trying to get their licenses back. Their way of living was completely destroyed, like a lot of us that didn't buy into this. And where's recourse for them? There really isn't any. There's not recourse for the people that were ahead of the curve. And now we are tasked with being kind and coming alongside people and educating them on the things that we've tried to educate them for years. No, it's time to step back and let God do his thing. You never know. You might be getting in God's way. If you're a Christian, you might be getting in God's way every time you try to go in and help somebody. I just had it press on me personally, and I've been telling some other Christians that are feeling the same thing that I am feeling. And I tell them exactly what I'm telling you, and it's like a look of relief because they were feeling guilty. And they feel like they're not being a good Christian, but they've been feeling the same thing, like just let things happen to people. And I said, it's not being unchristian, it's getting out of God's way. You need to stop playing God so God can do his thing. So that's my advice to them. Now, okay, the other thing I want to talk about was GLP-1, but I rambled on too long, so I'm going to have to be continued on the GLP-1s. I'll probably do it tonight or tomorrow. We'll see how good I feel tonight after having this massive appointment today. If I'm not too drained, I'll get back on screen and we'll talk about GLP-1s because I got a lot to say about that. And it actually does converge right into some of the information when it came down to COVID and COVID vaccines and COVID cures, which would be reptile venom. Nope, not conspiracy theory, guys. I'm not talking lizard people. I'm talking scientific data that you can look up for yourself. So, to be continued. I hope that tickled your fancy, a little taste of it. So I'll see you in a little bit. Bye.